Hello everyone! Today I'll be showing you how to use the animation graph and some techniques that I use to save me hours of time. Now, let's go to the action editor, which is over here on the dope sheet, and then if you drop it down you can get to the action editor, and I just prefer this area for animation in general. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to press K or I, depending on which Blender version you're in. If you're in 4.2 and up, it'll be K, and we can do location, rotation, and scale. And then we can go to frame 40, and then we just want to drag this on the x-axis just a bit forwards. And we can insert location, rotation, scale right there. And then what we want to do next is we could just go straight into the animation graph. To do that, there's two ways that I know. The way that I use is Control-Tab, and you could just do it while hovering over your keyframe section. And the other way to do it is if you go to the left over here and drop down that little thing next to Action Editor here, find the graph editor, and then you can get in here as well. Alright, so to break down the animation graph, basically you drop this down and all the lines on here result in location, rotation, or scale, and whether it's X, Y, or Z in that property. And basically this allows us to control specific properties of a keyframe, so we don't have to control every axis at the same exact time. If we use the search box is extremely useful when you're trying to use the animation graph, and I in fact use it a lot. So say we want just the X location on here. If you just type in X, we'll get all the X values, and then if you type in L, we'll get X location, just like that. And then we know what we see right here is actually what we keyframed across, because we only did the X-axis. And if I select both keyframes and zoom in just a bit, you can actually see that the motion is visible in here. If we were just to grab this one and press G and then Y, we can drag it up, and you can see that it's actually going further forward because this is changing its location here. And then if we go back here, we can see that it speeds up as it gets to the center and then slows down because of these slopes, which means if we were to change it to something like to the handle type of like vector here, we can see that it's a straight line. So if we were to go into the center here and we wanted to just bring this guy up, you can actually keyframe it just like you usually would while in the animation graph. And if we drag it up, it speeds up from right here and then slows down to there, and you can see this as like a little hill right here, which is so cool. How can we use this for, say, on the Z location? So we would just go over here and replace X with Z. We can just get our Z location, and it looks exactly how we'd expect, 0 all across the board. So we could then just pause it right here. Say we wanted it to go up, so if we went and pressed 1 on the number pad, we could then grab this guy right here, and as we drag this guy up, if you press Y, it'll lock it on the axis. And you can see we're actually creating the height difference right here. It has these squares right here, and those squares actually match up with the viewport squares right here, so you can kind of tell the distance that you're dragging it in here. But if we were to go back, it follows the exact path that we're dragging it on as well. Now we can just basically grab this. You don't even have to grab it on an axis. You can drag it back and forth, and you could see the different effects. If we drag it further back, then the time of which it starts going up really high starts a lot earlier. Now that's essentially the basics of what helps me a lot. So now let's go into a more applicable use case where I'm actually doing something using this sort of setup here. So if we go over here, say we want to take this spider's walking animation over here and put it on this daddy long leg over here. But we can see very clearly that the animation does not work exactly the same. But you can see that it's actually taking the same distances because these legs don't go as far as a daddy long legs should go, which means that we can use the animation graph to fix this animation without keyframing at all, period. So what we could do here is we press the 3 right here, or whatever number there is, it will duplicate your action. So then we can name this Daddy Long Leg. And we can hit the shield to make sure that it doesn't get deleted or something when you exit out of Blender, right? And what we can do here is we want to know exactly which ones we're trying to mess with here. And we know that all the legs are having a problem with their scales, so you want to select the IKs and the poles, basically. So we go through here, we select them, and then in my case, the poles are just these balls up here, so we just select them. And now that we have them, what makes the animation graph really unique is you can modify the keyframes while you're playing your animation. So if we press Control Tab to go over to the animation graph, it looks like a complete mess in here, and this is what it typically looks like and why it confused me for a long time, but it simplifies it so much if you just type in an axis you're looking for. So we're going to go Z and then L for location. And now all of these ones right here are just Z location. We don't have to worry about hiding anything. So then you can just click inside of your graph editor to unselect any that you don't want. Then you press A, and now we have all of the Z location bones. Now what we can do is we can actually press S and then Y. We can scale this on the Y to change the distance that it's actually going forward. So you can really exaggerate your distance just by scaling this. And it's already looking 10 times better here, but obviously we still have some things that we want to fix up about this animation, right? We can see that these are crossing each other and we don't want that. We actually want them to be more spread out and possibly go more, raise up a bit more on the daddy long leg. And we also want the body to go down a bit. If we just select the body, I believe this is also the Z axis for the body. I believe it goes off of like local axes when you're actually using this graph. Now, how would we move him down? Because we want to move the body lower to the ground without messing up all of his up and down movement. We can just do that same thing where we select A on all of those bones. And then we can go GY, so then we stick with an axis, and we're literally just dragging all those keyframes Z location up and down at the same exact time. Maybe we want to give them a little bit more bump, so now we can include that scale thing. So if we scale on the Y now, we can see as we go further, we're actually exaggerating the animation a lot. Next up, we want to take the legs here. So you pause the animation, select these two. Now, for separating them apart, it is actually just scaling as well. So if we go to, I believe it was the Y-axis, click in here, then we press A, and we scale on the Y, and we can actually see that I got the wrong axis here, which is really simple, because then we can actually just go through each of them. So let's test out the X-axis here, and see if that's the one that we're looking for. So we click A, and then scale on the Y. And we can see that this is the one that we want. So now we can turn off overlays to get a better picture. Scale on the Y. And this one we're kind of dragging in. And if I zoom in here, you can kind of see what's going on. You can see that all the keyframes are converging on the center, which I believe means that they're going closer to their original orientation. Because when a bone is in pose mode, its very first position is 0 basically. So as you scale them in, you're just bringing it closer to its default rotation. Maybe we want to give it a bit more motion up and down, and maybe it's a little too close now. So we just scale it out a bit, get it about right there. And we want to give it a little more up and down. So let's go to the Z location, and then let's press A. We could also just check by dragging this on the Y and see what happens. We can see that it's going more forwards than up and down, which is why we were not getting the result that we wanted. So that means it must be the Y-axis, or the X-axis. I can't remember the last one that I did. But then we can go A, G, Y, and just see, and we can see that this one is kind of up and back. So we go G, Y, and we can see they're going in that direction, which this is more or less what we want. So if we play the animation here, we can go scale on the Y. And then now we got a bit more of an exaggeration there, and it looks very nice when we exit out of that. So we got him moving, he's moving really nicely now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was my process for saving myself hours of time. Like, I cannot tell you how long it would have taken me to fix up that daddy long leg animation. by keyframing it, because I used to keyframe this stuff, and by the god, you can actually use this process to fix animations when you animate it on the wrong scale by accident, so then you don't have to recreate your whole entire animation. I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe.